I would say that the biggest difference between myself and many others is just I don't quit. I don't stop. It's consistency, 7 days a week, getting after it, getting up at 5:30, getting up in the mountains, over and over and over.
Welcome back to another episode of Built to Finish. Today's guest is a former NFL player turned entrepreneur and one of the few people in the world to complete the 7 summits, including Mount Everest. He is also the host of the Finding Your Summit podcast, where he explores what it really takes to push through adversity and perform at the highest level. What makes him unique is that he's operated in both elite athletics and extreme environments, giving him a real perspective on resilience, discipline, and finishing what you start. Today, we're going to talk about what it actually takes to perform under pressure, how mindset shifts when the stakes are really high, and what separates people who start from those who finish. I can't think of a better guest for the Built to Finish podcast. Mark Pattison, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. What a great intro, and I appreciate that. Every time I go meet somebody new, I should bring you along so you can intro me like that.
I'd be happy to tag along. I'll take you up on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So NFL and 7 summits, including Everest. I don't know where to start. I know a lot about the latter. I know very little about the former other than I'm a fan. So if anybody really wants to achieve the goal of climbing one of the big mountains or all of them, there's a game plan on how to do that, how to train, how to prepare, then you sign up and you go.
Yeah.
But the NFL is a whole different story. I mean, that starts with a dream probably all the way in high school. And then you have to keep at it for an incredibly long time until you actually get drafted and make the majors.
Yeah.
What was that journey like for you, and how did you keep at it?
Yeah, well, actually, there is a lot of overlap in terms of extreme mountaineering because anybody can go and anybody can hike, and it's low barrier of entry, meaning anybody can do it. You don't have to be special. You don't have to be like a basketball player and 7 feet tall or have special skills, super fast, things like that. But it does take training and experience to start elevating on those higher mountains. But going back to the NFL, I think the biggest thing is you don't go from little league, which I started playing football like all of us did, or many of us did, when you're 7 or 8 years old, and you don't go from little league to the NFL in one jump. And so every single time you go through another iteration, and you kind of go through this kind of first wave of all your buddies are playing when they're little league, and you kind of you're playing really the big three back in the day, at least we did, which are football, basketball, and baseball. Now there's lacrosse and other sports like that, soccer. But those were kind of the major, the three. And then the kind of the first wave of all your buddies playing. And now you get to 8th grade. Now you're going to high school. So now how many of those same guys are going to move on and play in high school? And the number shrinks, right? And so then you go through that. And for me, I just kind of kept elevating, because then out of that, I got letters all over the country, ended up going to the University of Washington. And now I'm like playing real football. High school you thought was hard. This is a whole different level. And now not just that, but when I first got there, I was way underweight. And in the past, and it's different now, but back in the day, I just showed up and I was just better than everybody at the time. And then you get as a freshman now competing against 4th and 5th year guys who've been there lifting weights, could bench 350 pounds. And I couldn't even bench my weight, which is 181 pounds at the time. And so I really had to build myself up, then jump into this pyramid of success on how I was going to elevate myself so I could just compete, let alone play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that took me 3 years before I finally got on the field, and then kind of being in the right place at the right time, and making some big plays and continuing to evolve and get more confident. And I was getting more confident because I worked at the craft and I worked the system, and I kept just, success built more success, and also success left me clues. I think that's a big thing in a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today, which is I had the older guys that I could follow to see what they were doing different, that I could emulate to then go. And I think that permeates in all things, in business and many, many different disciplines that we do that are out there. I want to be like Bob Costas or whatever you want to be, right? And so what does he do and how does he listen and respond, on questions and answers and things like that? And so from there, then you kind of get into this. And by the time I got to be a senior, there's a sorting of essentially whether or not you're going to get invited to the combines or not. They more or less still run it the same way, which all these scouts are out there. And so there's essentially 336 guys that are invited to go to the combines back in the day for me. And so I went down there of all guys, I like to tell this story. Jerry Rice was in that same combine, and I was like, who is this guy? He went to Mississippi State Valley College or something, some small D3 school. How could this guy ever compete? Turns out to be one of the best receivers of all time, if not the best. So that's kind of it's kind of a long-winded answer to your question of just there's iterations along the way that I kept learning and building and learning and building that ultimately led to getting all the way and drafted by the LA Raiders.
But was there a moment during that journey where you finally realized that, wow, I really do have a shot at the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I was really confident starting my junior year, going into my senior year that I would have a shot. The other thing that's a beauty about playing in those days, things have all changed, right, in many different ways. But it was the Pac-10, which then grew to the Pac-12, which then exploded, and now they're putting it back together. And now my Washington Huskies have now gone into the Big Ten, so much has changed. But the traditional old way, and it still is today, I mean, even though it's slightly different conferences, we were playing against NFL talent. I played at USC every year, UCLA, Stanford, Cal, Oregon, right? All the big, and there was always NFL players and talent on either, and there was practicing for me every single day against NFL talent, guys that would go on and have long careers in the NFL. And when I was at the University of Washington, it was a powerhouse. It was producing a lot of NFL players. Being, again, success leaves clues, playing against those guys, measuring up, competing, winning, and having success just leads to more confidence. And at the end of the day, that's so much about the sport is what's between your ears.
Sure. No, I totally agree. I love that comment. Success leaves clues. There's a lot of people that talk about, reading, self-help books, how to get better in a whole bunch of different categories. But the one recommendations I like the most that I heard recently is just read the books of people that have been successful and follow their path and listen to like their beliefs and the things that they did versus, just general, self-help topics.
Yeah, I also think something you had said earlier in this podcast is about the roadmap, right? And to me, the roadmap is so important. And so whether you read those or you listen to a podcast is really getting clear on what the ultimate goal and then what's the roadmap. So if I was starting, I'm just talking about a road trip now, but if I was in Seattle, Washington, and now I'm going to come visit you in New York City, okay, the goal is to get to New York City. How am I going to do that? And what's the path, right? And I have to drive or ride my bike across the state. So, well, I'm going to go here and there. And so just all those little steps. And a lot of times, people, especially where I've sit now having run Sports Illustrated and climbed mountains and played in the NFL, they look, they seem to be shiny, but there are so many moments of just being by myself and working out hundreds of thousands of hours of just me with no reporters or any of the stuff around and just keep working. And I would say that the biggest difference between myself and many others is just, I don't quit. I don't stop. It's consistency, 7 days a week, getting after it, getting up at 5:30, getting up in the mountains, over and over and over and over again. And that's it, right? That's really it is my sights, my eyes on a goal. And then what do I need to do, the roadmap to get there, and having these little iterations of chunks of wins that ultimately play out. And then I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I made it this far.
Well, I mean, that's an incredible mindset to have. I'm sure many people wish they had it.
Yeah.
How do you fight those? I mean, there's an inevitable bad day. I mean, you're
Yeah.
super sore from the day before. Something bad happened in the family with your friends. How do you get through those obstacles that are thrown at you?
Well, that's a great question. And at the end of the day, it's just your mind. It's just like, first of all, I don't believe for me, the way it's worked best is that I'm super intentional the day before, because a lot of times you wake up and like, I don't really feel like working out. Well, for me, I try to conquer that when I'm about ready to go to bed and the night before and like, okay, what's tomorrow morning look like? What's tomorrow day in terms of my workout? I don't believe, number one, that you can develop a strong body or a strong mind without having a strong body. It doesn't work the other way around at all. I'm convinced of that. And I can give you plenty of examples around that if you want to hear them. When I start planning my morning, my 5:30 a.m., like I did last night and what I did this morning, is I'm putting my shoes out. I've got my headlamp. I've got everything. So I'm just like a fireman hopping out of bed. All I need to do really is brush my teeth and then put on this stuff that I have right there in the room, and off I go. Water bottles filled. So I've mentally overcome, I call it feet on floor. The hardest part is the first part. right? And what a privilege it is for me to be able to exercise this body and look how far it's been able to take me in different things I've done. But again, yeah, I go through moments of time, but I can also tell you this: never been one time ever, and I would challenge anybody to this too, which is you go, I really don't want to do this, and we'll just call it a 3 mile run, and then you go do whatever physical activity you were just talking about that you really didn't want to do.
Hmm.
And then at the end of that, you're going, I really wish I wouldn't have done that. Every single time you're like, oh my God, I made it through it. Even if you're bitching and moaning or whatever, oh my God, I made it through. I'm so glad I did that. There's always joy and happiness from an accomplishment that you did when you really didn't want to do that. And so I also like to use the term slow and steady wins the race, right?
Okay.
That you don't always have to be the fastest guy on the block to get around because that's not sustainable. I used to run up this mountain and have these record times doing this in the state of Washington called Tiger Mountain. And I just got to a point where I can't keep going at this pace because I'm just going to burn out. And I didn't want to
Hmm.
burn out. So pull it back, slow and steady wins the race, and then consistency follows.
Yep. Well, one of the chapters in my book is not fast, not last, and that's been my motto throughout my endurance sports career. I don't
Yeah.
mean to be the fastest one out there. I just don't want to be last because I just have the psychological stigma about being last. If I'm second to last, I'm the happiest man in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good point. And again, it's just where you set your mind and your expectations. And for me, it's the day before to accomplish, like, to me, that's half the battle is just waking up. And then if you have to go look for your shoes and where is the water, and it just takes time. And then next thing you've crunched down your time. And I am so efficient with my day because I'm always trying to be one step ahead in my preparation.
You know what? I look back at the days where I had no problem doing whatever workout was on the plan versus the days where I was hemming and hawing. And I'm pretty sure the days where I was hemming and hawing were because in my mind, I'm like, okay, I got to go find the sneakers for today. I got to go find the shorts for today. I got to find the cold weather gear or my nutrients, my water bottle, et cetera, et cetera. Versus the days where everything was ready. I totally agree with you. Then it's just a matter of, getting up, getting into whatever you've prepared and hitting the road. So
Yeah.
it's such a great trick to use.
It's such a great trick, and for me, it has worked, and for me, it's had great results in terms of big achievements, just because of the and, like, if you even shift that over, because 'cause we're talking about working out right now, but, like, with Sports Illustrated, I took Sports Illustrated, and I started running it 10 years ago, and I took Sports Illustrated from number 17 to number 1 past ESPN, right? It's just a
Mhm.
gigantic accomplishment, and so the question is, how did you do that? Well, first thing I had to do is think differently because what they were doing for the past 43 years was not working, right? And so how can you think differently in terms of producing different kind of content and the way that content is consumed as the internet was growing and booming and blossoming, and the way we were consuming content was different because of the really short notifications that you're constantly getting on your phone that you're always looking over because, like, Barry Bonds has just been traded, or whatever the thing is, what is that, right? Short,
Mhm.
quick, to the point. And so really starting to think differently or write differently and produce journalism a different way, but making sure, again, going back to what I said, is that if you're going to do that, let's do it in a certain way, but the consistently of showing up every single day and making sure that everybody else in that same ecosystem that you're trying to bring them up, all writers from all the different teams, are all making sure that we're all doing the exact same thing on a daily basis. It's measured by the effort, which I can see because of the reports I've have. But
Mhm.
you get the winning team doing the right kind of thing with the right kind of consistency, and then you throw effort upon around it. Great things like that can happen going from 17 to number 1.
That's a great philosophy to have. And I apologize. I forgot to mention that you took Sports Illustrated to number one when I introduced you. Just amazing. So speaking of Sports Illustrated, which was after the NFL, we speak with a lot of entrepreneurs on this show, and a lot of people have their identities, tied up in their company and in what they do, right? When you left the NFL, how did you transition from that part of your career into the next one? Was that an easy switch for you?
No, it was awful. It was awful, and I think it's led into many of the things I've done today. But I like a lot of life lessons for me. Back in the day, they did not have any kind of transition plan, right? So when you stopped playing in the NFL, you went off the cliff. They just kissed you goodbye. You got your last check, and then that was it. And go figure it out. Good luck with that. And in college, I was a poli sci major. I was skilled to do nothing And what I had to learn down the road is I thought my phone would be ringing and everybody would be calling, Mark, you're a good guy, so come on and let's work for me. And not one person called me. And the reason why is because I brought no value to the table on anything that I could bring that organization. But what people forget to understand is they're executives are looking to make people they're just starting out, make their life easier, not harder. Like, I don't
Hmm.
want to go teach this guy all this stuff. I want this guy to come in and take a bunch of stuff about my plate. And there's plenty of guys who can do that. And so that was a hard lesson. Today, that the NFL has done a fantastic job at developing this thing called the trust. The trust is really a platform where whether you want to be a financial analyst, they can set you up with somebody at Merrill Lynch, or you want to be in the broadcasting business. There's just scores of different
Hmm.
occupations that you can go and figure out and you can test, as well as further higher education along the path. So it at the end of the day, it's just so much different. But in my journey, 2 years, I was kind of stuck. I mean, hardcore stuck. And the big lesson I learned out of that was that at the end of the day, no matter whether you like it or don't like it, action creates reaction. And so, you go do something you may or may not like, but at least you're going to say, I've done that and that
Hmm.
sucks and I don't want to do that. And I know that's not my space, but that's propelled you in a certain direction with a certain kind of momentum to then go try something else. And so, I had to zigzag a little bit, and ultimately I started this marketing company that I'd sell big corporations various things for different events. And that evolved into, I landed this big account with Starbucks Coffee, and that lasted for 14 years. And that was during their super growth, and that was super lucrative. And then I built, again, kind of like athletics, I built more and more confidence, like, that's interesting. And then I started a gaming company, an old traditional gaming company with another creative guy. And we won Toy of the Year in 2001 and 2002. The company
Cool.
called Front Porch Classics, and that company was sold. It was venture backed. And then I like, okay, what's next? And that's when kind of Amazon and the whole internet thing was like exploding, kind of like AI is today. I was like, okay, what's this all mean? And so out of that, then I started really digging in and digging deep into the internet and e-commerce and how does it work? And one thing led to another through a series of serendipitous relationships and meetings, which then I ended up ultimately running a big part of, well, it became the biggest part of Sports Illustrated, which is this part that I ran.
Hmm.
And that's what helped propel us up to number one.
Hey everyone, just a quick reminder that the Built to Finish podcast is brought to you by Acresis. Acresis have helped over 30 founders generate over $1 billion in wealth via strategic acquisitions or investor recapitalizations. If you're the owner of a middle market company and want to explore what a potential exit will look like for you so that you can finally realize the value of what you've been working so hard on, please do contact Acresis via the website acresis.com or hit me up on LinkedIn for more information at Stephen Pivnik. Now, back to the show.
Which then I ended up ultimately running a big part of, well, it became the biggest part of Sports Illustrated, which is this part that I ran.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what helped propel us up to number one.
That's amazing. I'm sure when you were in the thick of things, playing game after game, you had no idea that your career was going to lead to where it is today.
God, it's just, it's really interesting. I don't know if you're ever like this, but, well, I was thinking about this earlier today on the podcast. I was thinking about, 'cause somebody was talking about 5 years ago, they couldn't believe where they were. And today, where I am, I grew up in the great state of Washington in Seattle, and it was amazing at the time. And I've got the most amazing friends up there. My family's up there. But I'm broadcasting today from Boise, Idaho. I also live in Sun Valley, which is a ski resort. And I would have never have guessed any of that. And my life has changed so many different ways in so much time. And it's just, I can't wait. It's just part of the unknown. But 5 years from now, what's that look like? Right. And I'm new friends, new acquaintances, new relationships, new opportunities. Like it's just going to be an exciting time, out in the future.
No, I'm excited as well. And it's very, very similar to you. I had no idea that I would be where I am today. But the one thing that I'm incredibly fortunate about and I value tremendously is that I do have the same friends. Obviously, I made new friends along the way, but
Yeah.
having the same friends since high school, actually, some of them since grade school, is super, super important to me and special.
I've got that same situation. I just talked to a guy right before you called. Same deal back in, middle school. And I just went with my high school buddies and played golf. a couple of weeks ago in Palm Desert, same type of deal. Just they were so important along the way of just knowing who you are and what you are. And I don't know, they're all very successful. And again, success leaves clues, and they're good people, and they've got the right kind of North Star that they
Hmm.
follow.
Agreed. Agreed. So I love the quote that you said earlier, action creates reaction. So on the climbing category, I see that you've climbed Rainier. That was my action. I was actually visiting the West Coast on business, and I had a weekend to kill. So I hiked Rainier and I fell in love with mountaineering. I bet because after the initial hike that I took a beginner mountaineering course, summited Rainier, and instantly set Everest as a goal.
Ah.
What was your path like in the mountaineering world?
At the time when I did Mount Rainier a long time ago, 98, and at the time when we did Rainier, it was just like I grew up in Seattle. When it's not raining, I can see it out my window, and it's there, so you have to go climb it. And a lot of people had, and so I got three of my other close friends, and so we all went and we did this. And I was wearing the wrong gear, and there was a lot of mistakes that were made, and the weather was awful, and a bunch of things. But at the end of the day, we made it. I've been up there a number of times since, and it was amazing. My dad was also a mountaineer, so I climbed Mount St. Helens when I was 10 years old before it erupted, which was
Okay.
1980. And so, I got to do that. So that was another taste into the outdoors. And then, it was really about 10 years ago when I was going through some challenges, and I just needed something massive. They called it a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal,
I love
right?
that. I call it big hairy ass goals, but yeah, so
Yeah,
Jim Collins' original term is big hairy audacious.
yeah. Jim Collins has got a great book called Good to Great. I just said, I need something huge, big goal to pull me out of this. And so another one of my like Markisms is this, where your focus goes, your energy usually follows, right?
Hmm.
And so my energy now is not on poor Mark. It was like, oh my God, I've got to go. And then going back to this thing that you had talked about earlier, which is about, what's the roadmap? It was just like I called up a guy who's a mountaineer that has guide services all over the world. And I'm like, how do you do this? And so he like mapped it out for me. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And so, of course, in my mind at the time, being driven, I'm like, okay, which should take me 7 years because there's
Seven summits.
seven summits, which are the highest peaks on each summit. So trying to get there and map that out because depends on where these things are on the globe. It's just different seasons and everything. So I just thought that would take me 7 years. It took me almost 10 years to complete that. Just I forgot Mother Nature and COVID and things like that got in the way. But it was just an amazing journey for so many different reasons beyond just the accomplishment. And probably the biggest was that about halfway through, I was starting to get a lot of attention from the NFL. And so I was like, I've already had my 15 minutes of fame when I was playing football. And so my daughter had epilepsy at the time. And so she'd been afflicted with that for 20 years. And so I said, let's redirect this to raise money and funds to help people who seem that have that same affliction. And so we did that. I raised a lot of money. We had a bunch of different events. We called it Amelia's Everest. And so at the end of the day, I finished climbing Mount Everest in 2021. And then the following year, we came out with a film, the NFL, and I co-produced a movie called Searching for the Summit, and it ended up winning Best Picture Emmy Award, which was amazing. And we showed it at a number of different theaters around the country, and all the proceeds from all the paying to get in to see the movie was again forwarded to a nonprofit out of some valley called Higher Ground.
That's
Anyways,
fantastic.
today the best part is today through medication, my daughter is seizure free. So that's it was amazing gift.
That's incredible. That is so rewarding to go through all that effort and all that fundraising and to see the results right at home.
Yeah, it was great. Amazing.
So I saw the movie that it's available on your website. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's available on YouTube. Anybody can go see it. My website is markpattisonnfl.com, or you can go to YouTube, Searching for the Summit, and it's just it's a powerful film. It's 30 minutes, and for me to sit there in New York City at Lincoln Center and I was nominated also for Best Cinematography, which was incredible because I had the NFL had put these GoPros all over me,
Right.
and so I was, doing my best trying to figure that out and to capture a lot of that film. But a lot of it was about her, very powerful. And I was up against a bunch of ESPN films. And at the end of the day, Mike Tirico handed me the Best Picture Emmy for that film, and credit the NFL for putting it together. Great storytellers, and I was like blown away when I saw it.
Now, it sounds incredible, and I'm gonna watch it as soon as you and I are done. I just saw it on your website as I was preparing for this. I'm like, oh my God, I got to come back and watch this because I devour anything Everest. So I have to go watch it.
I got to tell you too, it's really interesting, and I'm saying this with all humility as I can possibly, you know, spit out of my mouth right now. But the Raiders, where I was drafted, built this new stadium in Las Vegas, Legion Field, right? And
Hmm.
it looks like a spaceship. It's amazing.
Right.
And on the north side of the field, they dropped in 102 players of all time, what they consider Raider greats. And many of them are Hall of Famers, you know, Howie Long and Lester Hayes, Marcus Allen and Jim Plunkett and those guys, right? And so somehow or another, I got my cement, you know, 8.5 by 11 block
Wow.
on the north part of that. And I was just a marginal player at best. You know, I was not an all pro, and I'm not being humble. That's what I was. And the thing I think I'm proud about is the only possible explanation is due to my body of work of not being hung up on this one thing that I did back in college. So if anybody's listening to this right now and they had an amazing college career and doing something, which I did, but so many of my NFL former teammates, you know, still, you know, their main thing is about what they did 40 years ago, not what they do today. And so I feel so proud that I've been able to figure it out over time, although a lot of struggle to figure these different things out on what the path forward has been to then have this body of work to then be recognized as one of those 102 guys. And that's the only explanation I can come up with that I would be in the ground there.
No, that's incredible, and congratulations on that recognition. And I would tend to agree. I think all of that work post NFL contributed to you being selected and included in that incredible list of people.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, I'm very grateful and very blessed.
Congratulations on that as
Thank you.
well.
Yeah.
Another accomplishment.
Yeah.
So you've been around a ton of players. You've been around a lot of other mountaineers and climbers.
Yeah.
What do you think separates people that actually finish from those who start and give up?
It's that the same thing we keep talking about.
It's all mindset, right?
It's all mindset, and especially like on Everest. You know, it's interesting because I've climbed the Matterhorn and the Eiger and Cotopaxi and the Grand Teton, and the list goes on and on and on. But the only thing that people really want to hear about is Mount Everest because it's
Of
so
course.
intense.
Right.
And one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that when you get to Mount Everest, talking about mindset, you know, you're there for 2.5 months and sleeping on ice and rock. You're at 17,000 feet. My friend, you're at 0 feet in New York City. So you're at 17,000 feet, right? Miles up in the sky, right? And it's hard when you're sleeping on ice and rock and eating bad food for that period of time. And you're going up and down and people are getting sick and the communication is very, very limited. Gate back home, what's going on? You would have more or less no idea that this whole like Iran thing is going on. And so it's hard. And so you got to keep your eye on the prize of what's most important and stay tuned in. And there's a lot of people out there because it costs a lot of money. So there's a lot of people out there with resources that they're like, screw this. This is like after 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I saw it. It happened to us. We started with 24 people in our expedition party and only 10 made it. And some of them were just like, I'm out of here, right? You're telling me I can be in New York City at the best, you know, Ruth Chris Steakhouse having a steak and a glass of red wine. I'm out of here. I don't want to do this. It's not that important. And again, in NFL, same thing. When you're going through those training camps and there's fights every day, it's a battle and people are clawing and there's families involved where, you know, this is their livelihood, right, of trying to make that team. It gets brutal and you got to just keep your eye on the prize and not get worried what everybody else is doing, just what you have to do to keep performing.
Yep, and obviously you performed all the way to the top. I had a similar experience on Mount McKinley in
Yeah.
Alaska.
Yeah.
There's about a dozen of us on the team, and it was a father-son combination. And 2 weeks into the expedition, the son got bored. It was an incredible father-son experience, and I was so envious of just the bonding that was occurring between a father-son so high up in the world. Literally, the son got bored, and he asked the guide on the best way to get back, and they left the expedition. I couldn't believe it.
So did you make it to the top?
Unfortunately not. It was a combination of two things. I was performing really poorly. I was not properly trained. So I made it to high camp at 19,000 feet, barely.
Yeah.
Come summit day, the lead guide said,
The high camp is 17,000.
I'm sorry. You're right. 17,000 feet. The lead guide said, Stephen, I think you would agree with me. You're not in good enough shape to join us on the summit bid. And I
Yeah.
completely agreed. I respected her decision. So I stayed back. Unfortunately, after about 6 or 7 hours, all of them came back as well because they got stopped by weather. So I wouldn't have made it anyway. And I felt so bad for them because they
Yeah.
deserved the summit. I didn't because I didn't prepare enough. So it goes back to your point earlier about proper preparation. It's just so important.
It's such a hard mountain. What a lot of people don't understand there is that you were carrying 137 pounds up there through a sled and on your back as you went through, and you got to climb that ice wall, which is probably 900 feet. And then after that camp at 17,000 feet, as you were probably looking at it, that crisscross that you have to do, I think it's called Jaws or something. Like it's
Hmm.
got a bunch of crevasses at the bottom, and there's been a whole lot of people that have fallen to their death and being eaten alive by those crevasses down below. And so it's a dangerous mountain. It's wicked. And you have to be on your toes, especially the first time. It took me 2 times. First time in 2017, I was stopped by minus 90-degree weather
My
at,
God,
at that
minus
14,
90.
yeah, at that 14,000 foot camp right below. I think it was camp 2 or 3, right below the ice wall. So, I mean, it's a tough mountain to do.
It really is. What was tougher for you, Everest or K?
Well, I didn't do K2, but
I'm sorry, K2 is not one of the seven summits, but I was wondering if you
yeah.
if you did K2.
No, I haven't done K2. I mean, it's just one of those ones that like 1 out of 4 people die. And after I came off Everest, and that's the next year I did Mount Blanc, and then the after year did the Matterhorn, and then the Eiger, and then the Dolomites, and then the Grand Teton. So I've continued to climb. Anything that involves long-term suffering, like what I went through, I dropped 35 pounds. I was snowblind. I was a mess, coming off that mountain, Mount Everest. And it's just like, I'm not interested in doing that again. It's just like, I look like a 200 years old. I just, I put my body to the ultimate test, and I had all 10 toes on the edge of the cliff. Right. And so,
Wow. Well,
yeah.
you just answered my next question, whether or not you're going to Everest again, because I want to go back because I didn't summit last year, so I want to go back. But I guess I shouldn't invite you to join me. You're not going back.
Well, what I'd like to do, my original goal was to climb Everest. I mean, this is what I paid for. Go climb Everest and then come down, jump my tent, and then go up and climb Lhotse. I knew that I would for sure die. I mean, I was at that point, if I attempted that. And so I would love to go back and climb Lhotse, but I don't want to take the money out of it. I don't want to spend 2 months to be there to climb for one day to get up and down. So if I could just blast out over there at no cost and go run up Lhotse, I'd be all in, but it's just not the way it's set up. So the answer is no on long-term suffering. Don't want to do that. But anything, like when I'm talking long-term, I'm talking about months. K2 is months, and that's brutal and it's straight up, and there's danger and there's rocks coming down, and a lot of people don't make it off that mountain.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's some sections of that mountain which are just impossible to mitigate the risk. And I agree with you. I have a lot of things on my bucket list, but K2 is not on there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyways, it's just one of those ones that's out there that I'm just gonna have to take a pass on.
I hear you, totally hear you. So a few rapid fire questions and we'll wrap up.
Yeah,
What's a lie people believe about resilience?
that's easy. That somebody can read a book. That anybody can do it. I think you just have to be tested in every single way to make that work.
Okay. Where do people quit before they actually need to?
Usually in the very beginning.
Good one. What breaks first, your body or your mind?
Well, it's just different for everybody. Like my body was broken down, but my mind didn't, even though I wanted to quit when I was on Everest. So I think, my body, in my case, broke down, but my mind didn't. And that's what kept me going.
Yeah, what does David Goggins say? Like when your body says no, your mind, there's still 30 or 40% left.
That's right. I agree with that too.
Yep, I'm same here. Is discipline something you build or something you're born with?
I think that's something that you have to develop over time, right? I don't think I was super disciplined, but I was taught discipline over time through a system and a pattern of repeating it, and doing things that I really didn't want to do. But that's what created the discipline.
Yep, great. Thank you for those. So I know you do a lot of public speaking and some coaching. What is the best way for folks to find more information about you and reach out to you?
Yeah, so anybody can reach out to me at markpattisonnfl.com. I also just came out with a book called Finding Your Summit, debuted #1 on Amazon, so very blessed. So anybody wants to hear about that. But the thing I'm most proud about that, it's not so much about the shiny things I've done, it's really about the peaks and the valleys and the resilience and the faith that you have to climb out of those things. So anybody wants to get a like little sneak peek into kind of my system, go there, Finding Your Summit on Amazon.
Fantastic. We'll put all that information in the show notes. Mark, it was such a pleasure speaking with you today. And thank you very much for sharing your story and sharing all of this advice that you have for others.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. You're good at this. Keep doing it, and make sure you send me this so I can socialize this out on my channels.
100%. Definitely
Yeah.
will. And thank everybody for listening to another episode of Built to Finish. If you've enjoyed this show, please do like and subscribe. It helps the show tremendously and helps me get great guests like Mark onto the podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Until next time. That's a wrap for this episode of Built to Finish. Thank you for tuning in. For show notes and more details, head over to podcast.stephenpivnik.com. Special thank you to our sponsor, Acresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services that help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Catch you next week.